Blog Talk Radio.
Everybody, I'm Tarhaka Amana LB, and welcome to Noise Talk Live 100. Tonight, my special guest will be Dr. Walter Williams, and we will be dealing with a Negro boy looks for his ancient Egyptian ancestors. We will be dealing with the following questions. Why is there so much controversy over the ancient Egyptians being black? I mean, it's all over. It's everywhere. It's obvious. So why is there? I mean, how you looking at it, and then you gonna try to point and say, well, it could be that. No, it can't be nothing but what you see. All right. Where did the so-called Negro come from? What is that? What do you get a Negro for? Where's Negro land? If we got Chinese people, there's a land called China. If we got Japanese people, there's a land called Japan. If we got Mexican people, there's a land called Mexico. If we got Cuban people, there's a land called Cuba. If we got English people, there's a land called England. Where is Negro land? Is denationalization a crime? Where are the descendants of the ancient Egyptians today? Are the ancient Egyptians descendants in America now? Can so-called black people claim Egypt today? These are just a few of the questions that we're going to deal with tonight. I'm waiting on my special guest, Dr. Walter Williams, to call into the broadcast, and we will be opening up the phone lines later on. You press one on your phone, that'll give me an indication that you have something to say. The number to dial is 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone, that'll give me an indication that you got something to say. We'll open up the phone lines so you can get in, okay? We want you to take your time. It may be a good idea if you get a paper and pencil for this broadcast so you can take some notes. Okay? Let me go into these commercials. Y'all hold your happy. We'll be right back. So hold on. Just
The
a moment.
greatest move you can make beginning in 2022 is to move out of the public and into the private. That's how you get rid of student loans, child support, mortgages, foreclosures, and all this kind of business. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out my Contact Us form by leaving your email address, and I'll rush my free report straight to your email box. Our economy is in shambles today for people who insist on living in the public. Move into the private. Make an easy transaction. Go to www.tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the Contact Us form, and I'll rush you my free report. As a secured party and creditor, can you buy a home, a car, and other items you need and want? The answer is yes, and there are documents you use to do just that. Catch my radio podcast at Blog Talk Radio. Go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the box with your email address that say join our mailing list, and I will send you my free report. You got credit problems? Contact me at tarhakadebtelimination.org. Let's stay in honor and get into the private. Hello, everybody. I want to introduce you to The Great Debate by Dr. Walter Williams. He single-handedly laid out the facts in this powerful debate against Mr. Munir Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, Chester Blair, a prominent lawyer in Chicago, Illinois, and Reverend Henry Hardy, a prominent minister in Chicago, and Prince Azio ben Israel of the Hebrew Israelites. This debate was hosted by a retired policeman named W.L. Lillard. Now, the whole thing was a setup by Lillard and his gang, but it didn't work. They brought what they believed to the table, but Dr. Walter Williams brought what he knew for a fact and what he could prove and laid it on the table. We are now in the age of knowing. The age of walking around believing in stuff is over. For your copy of The Great Debate, go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org, or contact me by phone. My number's on the website. Oh, and by the way, the lawyer got bust up too. The Great Debate. Get your copy today. Good day and peace.
All right, everybody, we're back. It appears that my guest is in the queue. I'm going to open up the phone lines at area code 773. Dr. Walter Williams, make sure he is with us. Area code 773. Dr. Walter Williams, you are on the air. Are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me, Brother Tarhaka?
Yes, sir. You're coming across loud and clear. All right. Before we get started, Dr. Williams, you want to, for the new people that's dialed into the broadcast today, could you give us a small breakdown on this Great Debate thing and how they could get a copy of the Great Debate and what it's all about?
Okay, well, the Great Debate took place in Chicago, Illinois, on a television program that was hosted by the producer, W.L. Lillard. And he set up that debate for me to be defeated. So he set 4 people plus himself to do just that, try to defeat me. And the categories that was presented that night. And the first debater on there was Prince Azio ben Israel of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement that was under the leadership of Ben Ami, who that group later moved to Demona, Israel. And the second person on there was a prominent minister, a preacher, who had a large following church there in Chicago, or here in Chicago. And the third person on there was Munir Muhammad. He was following the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. That's the third person. Then the fourth person was a lawyer by the name of Chester Blair. Chester Blair, lawyer, because I was saying that we Africans born in America are not citizens of the United States of America due to the Constitution drawn up in 1787. He was there to prove me wrong, but it didn't work. But anyway, and the fifth person was W.L. Lillard himself, because he was in the mindset that I didn't know what I was talking about, that I was a new guy on the block. Who is this guy, Walter Williams, and how does he fit into all of these different subjects? And so we got to defeat him. So he set the whole thing up, and it's on tape. You have copies of the tape to be sold to the general public. So if they want to get a copy of the tape, they can get that tape through you, Brother Tarhaka Bay, and you can tell the listening audience how they can purchase a tape.
Okay, all they have to do is just go to tarhakadenationalization.org, and right over there in the contact us form, they can put in there the email address in the comment section. They can just request a copy of it, and I will contact them, show them how to get it, or either they can call me directly. My number's on the top of the website, and I'll show them how to go by getting it right there. Don't take but a few seconds. But Dr. Williams, we certainly appreciate you giving us a breakdown on that great debate. A Negro boy looks for his ancient Egyptian ancestors. And we're ready to get down into that subject if you are.
Okay. But before we get to that subject, I'm going to tie in two subjects into one that will give a broader understanding of what the subject that we're talking about tonight, how important it is. So I'm going to narrate two narrations, one on 5 steps towards liberation for the African born in America. And I'm going to tie that right in with a Negro boy looks for his ancient Egyptian ancestors by way of searching and doing research in history. So I'm going to narrate those two together, and it's going to be, I hope I can provide some good information to the listening audience and make them think. That's the whole thing. We want to start the process of thinking now. Okay, we're going to get out of the realm of believing. Okay, so we're going to go into the process of thinking now. Use your analytical mind, and using your analytical mind will get you into a different mindset as a people and as a human being. So the first thing I want to explain on 5 steps towards liberation for the African born in America is that you have to know who you are as a human being. You got 8 billion humans walking this earth as human beings throughout the world. And all 8 billion humans got here on earth as a human being by the same process or the same way that you did and I did and all humans did. So we want to examine ourselves first. Who are we? Who are you as a human being? What were you given at the time of your birth? Now, you know that that your mother and father are your creators. Your father furnished the sperm that impregnated your mother's egg. In other words, your mother received your father's sperm in order to incubate you, the individual human, for 9 months in her womb. At the end of 9 months, a miracle came forth, and that is the life of a human being, a baby in an infant form, and that's you and I, or the other 8 billion humans on Earth. What you need to know is something about yourself instead of your parents giving you a virus called religion, which their parents gave them that same virus, and their great-grandparents gave them that virus, and it goes back. So instead of your parents giving you this virus and you of a religion, such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., and you were in your infant, early developing age, and you couldn't say, Mom, Dad, I don't want to be a Christian. Mom, Dad, I don't want to be a Muslim, etc., etc. So now that you are an adult, it's time for you to know who you are and examine yourself to that point. Now, all humans was given a indwelling divine spiritual birthright. After coming out of your mother's womb, attached to her umbilical cord for 9 months of incubation, that umbilical cord furnished 3 things: food, air, and water for your survival for the 9 months of incubation inside of her body. So now, who are you, this new miracle human being on Earth? What do you possess and as a human being? What is your divine spiritual birthright? Your divine spiritual birthright is your life that's indwelling inside of you at this very moment. Now, that life that indwells inside of you at this very moment was the gift from your 2 creators, your mother and father. Now, all humans are born with a pineal gland. What is your pineal gland? Your pineal gland is a sensor organ that sits in the middle of your brain. It's a sensor organ that sits in the middle of your brain. It serves as a receiver and a sender to you, the human being, and to your universe. Now, let me break that down a little further. Now, your pineal gland starts at the tip of your nose. That's where you intake air. And you follow that tip all the way up, keep going, all the way up until you get to the bridge of your nose, and keep going, all the way until you get to your forehead, and all the way all across your skull, which is your brain, houses your brain, and all the way back to the base of your neck. That's your pineal gland. That's the organ that keeps you alive. That's where you intake air. That's where you send messages to your universe, and you can receive messages back from your universe. Now, what is your universe? In other words, if I cut your head open, I can see your brains, but I cannot see your mind. Your mind is invisible spirit. That's what your mind is, invisible spirit. Now, your mind is also your universe, where you take things in and you can reject things and throw it out of your mind, okay? But your mind is very, very powerful because that's where you live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right in your mind. All humans live in their mind, in their own universe, okay? So that is something that you need to know about yourself. And then also connected with your mind is your submind, your subconscious mind, okay? Your subconscious mind and your mind, your main mind, interact with each other. In other words, if you understand a computer, you take in information, and if you want to keep that certain information that you're taking in, you put it in your subconscious mind for you to recall any time that you need to recall it. So that's your subconscious mind. That's one of the functions. Another function is that's where you have feelings down in your stomach area. That's where your subconscious mind is, in your stomach area. And you have feelings there. You have hunches there. Ideas come to you. And sometimes you get a hunch and you say, oh, I should have followed my first mind. That's your first mind. You see? So your first mind and your mind, your main mind, interacts with each other. You cannot, in other words, you can't leave home without either one of them. That's part of your humanity. Now, the next step of liberation for the African born in the United States of America is religion. Religions are very dangerous for an individual to believe in, because all religions, in order to maintain a religion or practice religion, you have to believe. That's the glue that keeps all religions together. Belief. I believe. Okay, I have faith. But belief does not give you knowledge. Faith does not give you knowledge. Okay? So therefore, you can believe all you want. You may be wrong. Okay? Or you may be right. But most times, you're wrong, especially when it comes to religion. Religions are created by man. Okay? It's man-made. See? So therefore, Carter G. Woodson said that religions are created to control your thinking. That's what religions are created for, to control man's thinking, control his action. Carter G. Woodson said that if you can control a man's mind, you do not have to worry about his actions. If he is trained to go to the back of a building, a house, to find a back door to enter, upon arriving at the back of a house or a building, he doesn't find one, he'll make one, because he's been trained to do that. So religion also, I want to bring out to your attention, steals your humanity, the humanity that I talked about just a moment ago, what you possess as a human being. The religion steals that away from you, okay? It steals your humanity, okay, because it's based off of belief. And when it steals your humanity away from you, and you don't understand that your humanity has been stolen from you, you're in trouble. Because you got to realize that all humans on earth was given free will or free range in their thinking. Okay? Now, with your humanity that is driven by and sustained by a life force, that life force contains one will, which is monotheism, and one energy, which is monotheism. So, for instance, Tarhaka today has the will and the energy to start this program that we're on today. See? So, another thing you have to remember, that all humans was born with everything that they would need to sustain themselves for the rest of their life. You were given a spirituality that sustains you for the rest of your life. And you were given everything that you spiritually and physically need to sustain yourself for the rest of your life. Your spirituality and your physical needs are your feet, toes, legs, arms, fingers, ears, eyes, nose, etc. Those are your physical needs. You were given all of that at the time of your birth. That's part of your humanity. So, and see, religion is another thing I'm going to bring up to your attention. That religions, once an individual embraces a religion, that individual has side effects. These are all religions have side effects. It's like when you go to the doctor and he prescribes a medicine for you to take, a prescription drug. That prescription drug that he's prescribing for you to take has side effects in it. If you don't believe it, listen to your television. It announces these drugs every day on television, and they give you the side effects. It's horrible. But anyway, so all religion, no matter what name you may call it, has side effects. And the first side effect is that it's confusion. The individual human is confused because they don't know who they are as a human being. They don't know what they possess as a human being. They don't know what was given to them at the time of their birth. So they're confused. These religions, that's the first side effect. And the second side effect, religions, all of them, limits your thinking. It incarcerates your mind. When you are incarcerated in a jail, you are given limited space to live within in the confines of that limited space. So you do the same thing to your mind. You incarcerate your mind, limits your thinking. And the third side effect is animation. When you go to church during the time of Easter, they tell you, or Christmas, doesn't matter. When you go to church, they tell you that this Jesus was crucified on a cross, and you can, as a preacher tell you that story, you begin to animate that in your thinking, in your mind. And every Easter that comes about, you animate that same story. Every Christmas that comes about, you animate that story about Christmas and this child, this Jesus child, living in a manger, brought to the innkeeper, and the innkeeper said, "There's no room for you all in this inn." So they went out and found a manger and so forth. You know the story. So you animate all of that. You see, so part of what is happening with these various religions. Now, also, I want to bring this to your attention. We, as an African people, living in the United States of America, we were enslaved on slave plantations. We were enslaved on these plantations. We were chattel property, chattel slaves, or chattel property of the slave master. That went on for 246 years until one day in 1865, we were a free people. Okay? So now, we've been free for 157 years of freedom from chattel plantation slavery. But no, you won't let that, your freedom, you as a human being be free. No, what you did once upon that you got free from chattel plantation slavery, you dressed up and went across the street to the church plantation. Okay, you went across there, you dressed up, and you became a slave to in the church with the religion called Christianity. Now, let me break that down. The head of all slave plantations is the slave master. He's called Omasa. The head of all Christian church or churches throughout the world is Jesus the Christ. He's the head of it. So him and the slave master is one and the same. All slave plantations had an overseer that kept the slaves in order. And that overseer was an old boss, Charlie, an old white man. The overseer in the church today is the minister, the reverend. He keeps the flock in order today. And the slaves are sitting in the pews of the church. Every chance they get, they're sitting in that pews, whether it's Sunday, on a Sunday, or having a funeral, or whatever the case might be. They're out there sitting in the pews. Now, when an individual go to church, guess what? They don't have to think. See? Because everything is given to you, packaged, in a package given to you, so you don't have to think. Now, what's in your package? In your package is this dead white man on the cross called Jesus the Christ. In this package is God, who you think exists. And in that package is the Bible. The Bible is a book that one has to believe in. Okay? Jesus the Christ is something that you have to believe in. You see? And so you have your package all set up for you to believe. And you sit out in the pews, and you don't have to ask questions. So at the end of the service, you leave the service, and you shake the minister's hand, old reverend. You really preach a fine sermon. And an hour or two later, you can't remember what he preaches. Okay? So those are the things that you need to really understand what is happening to us as a people. And not only us, that's happening to all of humanity who embraces religion. Okay? And but the main thing, I'm bringing out our plight in these various religions and what harm they are doing to us as a people. So that's the religious part. And then the third step of your liberation is you need to know something about God, G-O-D. God is an entity that you've never seen. I've asked many people, have you ever seen God? They looked startled and said, no, I haven't seen God. Oh, okay, but I know there's one. I know there's a God. Okay, all right, but you've never seen this God that you know exists. Is that correct? He said, no. All right. Now, who is this man called God? Let's break that down. Okay? God. You never seen God, but you believe in God. Okay? And you got 8 billion humans again walking this earth as human beings. Every human on earth have their own personal God. Because when you go to church, the minister tell you that God made man in his own image. That means that God is a man. Go to the dictionary. The dictionary, you look up God, it says a male deity. That's the first definition. Second definition, it says a supreme being. Look up goddess, it says a female deity. It never said a supreme being. See? So, now, well, who is God? Who is this man called God? Big question. Let's go back. Again, 8 billion humans. 8 billion humans walking this earth of all races, creeds, and color have their own personal God. Since God is a man, who is God in your life? Who is Tarhaka Bay's God? Who is Walter Williams' God? Who is the God of the listeners out there in the listening audience. You have a personal God, and that's the man that you call father or dad or daddy. That's your personal God. Your personal God is your mother, the one that you call mom or mama, okay? Those two create you as human beings. You cannot deny that. No invisible anything brought you into this world. But what they do is set you up with this God thing because they point you to a dead white man on a cross as the Son of God. And they tell you that I and my Father are one. Okay? So therefore, this Jesus the Christ, a supreme being. Okay? He's able to walk the waters. He's able to take a fish and feed multitudes of people, etc., etc. You see? So he is that God that they want you to believe in. But then there's never been a Jesus Christ walking this earth. I have my two books that are out, been out for, one been out for 29 years and the other been out for 18 years. The Historical Origin of Christianity, that's my book that I wrote 29 years ago. The Historical Origin of Islam is a book that I wrote 19 years ago. And those two books are among the best-selling books in the African world of literature. So you need to know something about God. And then the fourth side effect that these religions will give you when you embrace a religion is fear. They tell you that if you don't believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, you're going to die and go to hell. You see? So that breaks down to the point about God. The next liberation point or liberating point is about the white man. We have to know something about our enemy that's put us in this situation. Still keeping us in this situation. And our everyday life, whether you like it or not, this white man. But who is this white man? Where did he come from? This white man, or this European, cannot show you anything that ever came out of Europe that the Europeans had built, developed, or created. Can't tell you that. Can't show you that. But now you can go into Egypt, back to our ancestors, and we have a multitude of things to show you. Civilization came from that one race of people, those African people. And also, from civilization, what is civilization coming from them? It's that they create the alphabet to make them civilized and literate. With the learning of the alphabet, which is the first thing you learn when you go to school, is your ABC. You learn how to read, write, and spell by learning your ABC. That makes you a literate person. Then they teach you mathematics. The ancient Egyptians created all forms of mathematics, all forms of mathematics. It is a puzzle and a mystery today to mankind as to what mathematical formula did the ancient Egyptians use, those Africans, in the continent of Africa, in the country called Egypt. What formula, mathematical formula did they use to build the Great Pyramid? Question. You will never know that. But there's the pyramid there. You can't deny that. If you get your into your wallets and your pocketbooks and your purses that you carry around every day, you'll find a dollar bill among your monetary means that you have in your pocketbooks, wallets, and etc. that you carry every day in your life. On the back of that dollar bill is the greatest monument that's ever been built by man, and that's the Great Pyramid, built by an African people known as the ancient Egyptians. Also, on that dollar bill, you'll find an eagle there. That's the seal of America. Okay, what America did, they tried to replicate ancient Egypt into this hemisphere that we call America. That's what they did. So, if you look at it like that, then you have a broader understanding of what I'm talking about. And I suggest that you get a book called Egypt on the Potomac. Write it down, Egypt on the Potomac by Anthony Browder. He takes you all over Washington, D.C. and show you where all the ancient Egyptian monuments, statues, art, and so forth and so on. It's all scattered throughout Washington, D.C. Very good book for you to understand that particular aspect of yourself learning that you should want to learn something in order for you to grow. Keep evolving as part of your growth. So, so this European, now who is he? He can't show you anything coming out of Europe of any substance. And he also, he has no known beginning history. And he'll tell you that in his books, in his writing. I have several books that says, written by him, by the European, saying that he does not know his beginning history. That's true. Don't know their beginning history. But the only beginning history that I know and can attach to the coming of the European is when Alexander the Greek came into Egypt in 332 BCE. That's when European history began. Because when he came over there, he saw the greatness of what our ancestors had created there in Egypt. Okay? So he wanted to be made part of that. And, let me tell you about the alphabet again. The alphabet that the ancient Egyptians created over there by being the first and oldest civilized people. I didn't say the world's first and oldest civilized people. I didn't say the world's first oldest people. I said the world's first oldest civilized people. Along with that alphabet comes the musical scale. Music comes out of it. Do, re, mi, so, fa, la, ti, do. That came from the alphabet. The ancient Egyptians were the world's first musicians. And the world's first musicians were the African ancient Egyptian women. They were your first musicians. Okay? You need to know that. So, that is very important for you to know. And they tell you that they have 7 wonders of the world. Oh, okay. But I can only find one. They say that one of the wonders of the world is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Well, Babylon is where? In the Bible. Anything in the Bible does not exist as humans or human endeavor. Okay? So they can't find any of the other 6 uh, greatness of mankind, they can't find that. But they only can show you ancient Egypt by showing you the Great Pyramid. That's the only great artifact or structure that was built by man. And they can't figure out how it was built. So now the Europeans, again, went into Egypt under the leadership of Alexander the Greek in 332 BCE. The country of Egypt was run by the Melkite Coptic Egyptians who ran the government of ancient Egypt. Seeing that the Greeks were not going to leave, the Melkite Egyptians set out to learn the Greek language in order for them to communicate with the Greeks. So they learned the Greek language and began to speak the Greek language. So, and then the rest is history. So that's a beginning known fact about the European. He does not know a beginning history or have a beginning history of themselves. So that's your fourth liberation information. You have to know something about this white man. And you have to start there to understand that he does not have or know a beginning history. He'll tell you that himself in literary form. The fifth liberating fact is that you have to know something about ancient Egypt. Okay? Ancient Egypt is where our greatness is lying, in the continent of Africa, unclaimed by its descendants, the American Negro who was born in America, who's been taught away from his ancient Egyptian ancestors on purpose by the Europeans. We went to school, we were taught away from ancient Egypt. Now this goes to the point where I'm getting into my second narrative. A Negro boy finds his ancient Egyptian ancestors' roots. That Negro boy was me, Walter Williams, sitting in a classroom the year 1939. I was 8 years old, sitting in Chicago in a classroom. In that, they gave me a book called Little Black Sambo. Little Black Sambo was a book that showed an African boy taking the tiger by the tail and going around and around and around and around a tree until they both turned to butter. This is what I was supposed to be. This is what we were supposed to be. Okay? That book was given to us to degrade us. Okay? That book was also given to the white child of the same age and at the same time that they gave it to me. But that book was to make him feel superior over us. Okay? But now, it did something to me. Here I am, an 8-year-old boy. I said to myself, I said, we have to be greater than a Black Sambo. We had to be greater than that. So what I did, I set out in life looking for the greatness of us as an African people. 8 years old now, with these type of thoughts. And I began to play music. I played the saxophone, and I became a musician. And I met a man by the name of Sun Ra. Sun Ra was old enough to be my father. Because all the young guys would go up around him. Because we would play music and listen to him philosophize. Okay, in between playing music. Now, I didn't play in that orchestra. We played all combos around Chicago. And we played songs like All the Things You Are, I Had a Moon, and Love, and all that kind of tunes like that. So he told us that we were descendants of the greatest people that has ever existed on planet Earth. They are known in history as the ancient Egyptians. Has the richest culture that existed on planet Earth. Now, by me, I heard that, but I didn't hear it. Now, he gave me the information then. I was 19 years old. He gave me that information, but I didn't realize what he was giving me. And that I didn't realize that was the information and the people that I had been looking for since I was 8 years old. Okay? Now, I got married to my second wife. 3 sisters worked at Illinois Bell Telephone Company. And the Illinois Bell Telephone Company was offering a inexpensive trip to Italy. So my wife and I, we hooked on to that trip. And we went to Italy. While on the Rome bus in Italy, the tour guide over the intercom said these words: when the Romans, who are Italians today, went to Egypt to receive civilization, a light just went off inside me, bing! And I didn't know. I said, what the hell is going on with me? But that was the signal that the Creator was giving me. And I was the one to take that signal and bring forth information about us as African people being ancient Egyptians. You see? And as you know, I wrote my 2 books, and I'm writing on my 3rd book. It'll be out before the year's out, by the first of next year. In my 2 books that's out there now, the Historical Origin of Christianity has been out for 29 years, selling all over America, all in the UK, all in Africa, everywhere. It's one of the 10 best-selling books in the African world literary community. And the Historical Origin of Islam has been out for 19 years, selling the same place. So now, I said to myself at that time, I'm 44 years old now. I woke up. I said, when I get back to America, I will get me a magnifying glass that depicts and get me every ancient Egyptian book that depicts ancient Egyptians in them. And with my magnifying glass, I will look into the faces of these being depicted as ancient Egyptians, whether they look like me, whether they look like you, whether they look like us in the African community. And once I was convinced of that, I was on my way. And I also said that I will get me history books. Any book that says history of it, I will get me those history books and study the history books. And so with that in mind, I went back to America, got my magnifying glass, like I said, and began to look at all these pictorial books that depicted ancient Egyptians in these books, and I was convinced that, yes, we are. They are. And we look just like them, and they look just like us. And one day, I was in the studio of one of my schoolmates that I went to school with. And Jimmy Ellis, he was a musician like myself. We gauged around Chicago as young musicians. But he was a book buff. And he was given a saxophone lesson in one room, and I was in the other room. And facing me was a case of books, bookcase full of books. And I went over there and I saw a book that says The Outline of History by H.G. Wells. I said, wow, okay. I picked this book up, took it off the shelf, and I opened it up. I didn't thumb through it. I opened it up. And what stared at me was a picture of a man that I thought was Jesus the Christ. But it said under the caption of this picture, Serapis. And I said, oh, wow. I said, let me read further. And it said that in the cult of Serapis, or Serapis, either one you want to put, tomatoes, tomatoes, potatoes, potatoes. Doesn't matter, you want to say it, Serapis or Serapis. In the cult of Serapis, he is spoken of as the Savior. I said, wow, this is the same attributes that they are giving to this Jesus the Christ. Then it went on to say that he raises the dead. I said, wow, this is the same attributes that they're giving to this Jesus the Christ. Then it went on to say, even after death, you will always be in the presence of Serapis. So, and I said, wow. I said, let me put a historical trace. Let me trace this Serapis through history and find out who actually this Serapis is all about. And I found out what I wanted to learn about Serapis. I came out with my first book, The Historical Origin of Christianity, in the year 1993. And that book said that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to sign off now, but I'm going to tell you this before I sign off. A man, one of our friends, one of my friends, one of my wife and I's friends before she's deceased now, he asked her, Sister Williams, why were we put into slavery by the Europeans? And she gave him this answer. She told him the reason why we were put into slavery by the Europeans is because we are descendants of the ancient Egyptians. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my brother, Tarhaka Amani Obey.
All right, Dr. Williams, well done. I have a few questions, but I'm going to take a break. That way you can get your drink of water and relax. And ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that the phone lines are wide open. The number to dial into the broadcast is 515-605-9757. That's 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication that you have something to say. We're going to take a little quick break, and when we come back, then we'll continue with a Negro boy looks for his ancient Egyptian ancestors. Okay? So y'all hold on a minute, and we'll be right back. Oh, yeah.
When you know what the Internal Revenue Service is and what their job and duties are, you can use the correct way to deal with them. There's a remedy for you to use. When it comes to the IRS, go to tarhakadebtelimination.org. Fill out the box with your email address that says join our mailing list. The Internal Revenue Service is a private corporation, but there are rules and regulations. Get my free report. Learn about what's going on in America today. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. Lose your fear for the Internal Revenue Service by knowing exactly what to do based on what you know about them and what remedies are available to you to use. Tarhaka Debt Elimination.org. Peace.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Right. The thing I found about the Egyptians in Ohio was actually from a paper that was written. It's postulating it. I guess they took a lot of the evidence that they had been finding and saying this shows that there might have actually been Egyptians there.
That's from 1937?
That's when the guy was, I think, born. This is 40 years ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
That amulet was brass, apparently, and it was found near Cincinnati. And where I actually think that it might have been trade routes, because there was some, like, stones that have been found in various parts of the world that are from specifically Ohio, because it's like a rainbow shale that was used in like arrowheads and stuff a long, long time ago. Like that area was used to make weapons, like the first, like 12,000 years ago when the first people were kind of in North America. But that area in Ohio also is known as the sandstone capital of the world, and I don't know if that's related to the Egyptians. That's what the pyramids are made out of, you know. There's tons of sandstone that is very specific to that region.
Yeah.
So.
Pyramids made out of sandstone?
I thought so. Yeah,
I've heard this
there's
thing.
21, from 1800 to 1980, 21 times the amount of sandstone that made the Great Pyramid was shipped out of Ohio to make various buildings all over the world.
Really?
Most of them in the United States, obviously, but all over the place.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, just weird facts I found after Graham
History
came through.
of the humans.
We don't know history.
We know some.
The only history that we know is the one we go discover on our own time. The one that's presented to us is not history. It's all lies.
Well, it's not all lies.
All of it.
There's some lies.
I found that too.
Lost civilization in Grand Canyon was, Egyptian?
Yeah, the Smithsonian published some stuff in 1909,
wow.
I guess, that where all this came from. There was an article that got written, and I don't know how much of it they proved or was proven, or it was just newspaper clickbait back in the day.
Look at this. Even more amazing, the artifact didn't match up to anything on the known record. Rather than appearing to be of Native American origin, as one might expect, the object had distinct Egyptian or Tibetan designs. Could there have been an entire civilization of Egyptians living here? If so, how did they get here? Dun, dun, dun.
It's not that hard. Hop in the boat, man. You got cats that leave Africa and try to come to Spain on these places on a chicken wing.
Yeah.
You know?
It is interesting, right? Like the population of Cuba. Cuba's so insanely diverse, and it's right there. Like, what is the history of that, other than the slave routes? Like, what is the history of Cuba? Because Cuba has very distinct African people living there.
The whole Caribbean, all that whole area has a lot of African roots to it. But it's just a place that was conquered by the Spain, you know, by the Cortezes, you know, those type of people.
What really disturbs me is there's no way to know exactly what happened. It's like you're piecing things together based on artifacts and historical record, things that people wrote down, and journals and logs. And
there's people that have traveled. So, again, I've studied this so long ago, but I remember reading primary source from somebody that traveled with Cristobal Colon, a.k.a. Christopher Columbus. And he was saying very specific things about his accounts when he reached these different places. You know, and he was saying things like, we got to the land and we found Africans. And I remember him specifically saying, so no matter where we go, we find Africans. And he said it as if he was disappointed. And then they started talking about, like, you know, they started talking about their culture and describing their culture. You just got to go look at the people that travel with Cristobal Colon, and there's some first-hand accounts there. And they're very honest about it, you know.
Dude, I'm going to look into that now. That's very interesting. I'm going to ask Graham about that, too, what he knows about it.
Yeah.
He's studied, especially on his latest book, he studied a lot about the various cultures that made it to North America and South America.
Okay. Yeah. It's just very rich in history. Very, very rich in history.
All right. 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication you got something to say. Dr. Williams, we got a caller with a hand raised. Before we open up, I'm going to open up the phone lines here so they can get in. Area code 832. Area code 832, you're on there. What's your, tell us who you are, what's your comment? 832. Okay, no
Hello.
832. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sorry. Yeah, my name's Iris, and I wanted to ask Dr. Williams, please explain again why ancient Egyptian hasn't been deciphered.
Okay. All right, well, if you get my book, Sister Iris, The Historical Origin of Christianity, and you turn to page 146, that's the appendix section I put in that book, wrote in that book. And that section is saying this: why the Meta-Netia hieroglyphics have never been deciphered. And I'll give you the first example. In order for the hieroglyphics, those pictorial symbols drawn by our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, in order for you to know what he or she meant for them to be, you have to ask, A-S-K, the ancient Egyptian who drew those symbols, what he or she meant for them to be. Not for Western academia meant for it to be, not for no human on earth meant for it to be. And the second example in my book, in that chapter, is that I drew a symbol of my own, and I asked the reader, can you tell me the meaning of the symbol that I drawn? The answer would be no. Why? You can't tell me the meaning of it, but you have to ask me. I created that symbol. So that's number two. So, and then I go on and on and on. But anyway, if you get my book, Historical Origin of Christianity, read page 146, and just read it over and over and over again until you really understand the message. The third thing about the hieroglyphics, I have with me an award to give to anybody of any race, creed, or color that can take one hieroglyphic symbol and explain that symbol to me as to what the ancient Egyptians meant for that symbol to be. Not for what you meant for it to be, not for what Western academia meant for it to be, but what the ancient Egyptian meant for it to be. I'll give you $1,000 for every symbol that you come up with.
Right. So,
the fourth thing that I'm going to bring to your attention is this. In my new book that's coming out, that I mentioned, hopefully it'll be out before the year's out, about first of next year, I have added information to prove that the hieroglyphics have never been deciphered. It's called the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language. So if you have a copy, or anybody have a copy of that the American Heritage Dictionary in the listening audience, you turn to page 626, and it says on page 626, Egyptian hieroglyphs, or Egyptian hieroglyphics, it says. It says that these Egyptian hieroglyphs is unlegible and undecipherable. So they're telling you it can't be deciphered. You can't decipher that. It's impossible. So that's what I have to say about that.
okay, so what do you think about the hieratic writing that's on the that red letter stone?
Well, you got to know the origin of that stone. Where did it come from? Who created that stone? Okay?
You don't
They said that the first section is Egyptian.
Right.
The second section is another form. And the third section is Greek, so forth and so on.
Right.
So you got to find out who created that stone, and what year and what purpose. Now, the closest I can get the history of where that stone came from came out of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Ptolemy 5 Epiphanes Aristos, that was a commemorative stone given to him for the many favors that he was giving to the ancient Egyptians. So that's where you can start there and try to understand about this stone. But other than that, here's a stone that's supposed to have been found in 1799 by Champollion in Egypt.
Right.
With his army. And the British government did not allow him to take that stone out of Egypt because they were in charge over there at that time. So it goes on and on and on. So you have to do some really investigative research. But I will start with reading that chapter on page 140 about the metanational of the cipher, and read it all the way through, and you get a good understanding of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've got one more question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What is the name of the document that were written by white people who say that black people aren't slaves anymore?
Black people are what now?
That black people are freed.
Are free?
Yeah.
Are free? Well, that's supposed to have been the 14th Amendment. Okay? The 14th Amendment.
You mean the third? Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, you said the 14th Amendment?
There's the 14th Amendment the 14th Amendment was supposed to have given us make us a free people. But the 14th Amendment says this, the first article of the 14th Amendment says, a person born or naturalized in the United States of America is thereby a citizen of the United States of America. Okay? Now, it says a person. You see? The Constitution does not list us as an African people who has as persons. Or see, a person is a human being. That document called the United States Constitution does not list us as humans. You see? So therefore, we were considered 3/5 of a human. You see, through that document, and they could not make us free on the 14th Amendment because it was adopted but never enforced. Even if they tried, even if they enforced it at the time in 1868, it was still, the question has to be asked: if that 14th Amendment freed us, then why in 1964 they had a voting rights bill for one race of people?
Right.
If that, it had a civil rights bill for one race of people. If that, if the 15th Amendment gave us rights to vote, then why did they have a voting rights bill in 1965 that for one race of people? You see?
Yeah.
So that's
the 13th Amendment says, okay, no slavery or involuntary servitude except as a punishment, and we're punished for crimes all the time. So it still means that we're slaves, correct?
Still mean what now?
No, I'm saying the 13th Amendment said neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted.
That's the 13th Amendment? The 13th Amendment?
Right.
That's the Emancipation Proclamation. That was adopted, that was drawn from January 1, 1863. Okay? But that that document, that was enforced in 1865. See, it was adopted.
Okay, so
Yeah, but it was enforced in 1865 when they freed the slaves and ran them off the plantation.
All right, so you're freed, but still in the 60s they make rules for you to be able to vote. Does that make sense?
That's what I'm telling you now. We are not citizens of the United States of America. Never will be citizens of the United States of America until they take that worthless document called the
Constitution.
Declaration. Huh? the Constitution, and tear it up and rewrite a whole new Constitution and put us in there as a full-blown citizens and not slaves or 3/5. That's the only way they can do it. And they're not going to do that. And they will have to, in order to do that, they will have to apologize to us for putting us into slavery and give us reparations. They're not going to do it, either one of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for calling in, sister. Let's go down to the next caller, Dr. Williams, at area code 312. Area code 312. You are on the air. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from. What's your comment?
This is Brother Yoel from Underground Bookstore in Chicago. Brother Tarhaka, good evening to you, and good evening to Professor Williams and all those in the listening audience on this fine July evening. If I can, I wanted to add a little something with what Dr. Williams just said to the sister about the 13th Amendment. What you read is it said involuntary servitude was abolished, but it did not say voluntary servitude. So what you've been doing is we've been volunteering to be slaves, okay? So that's why when you go back and you read that, you'll see that it didn't say anything about your ability to volunteer into something that you don't know anything about. And secondly, I'll add one more thing to that. If you look in Black Law's Dictionary 9th edition, and you look up slavery, what it will tell you is give you the definition of slavery, and then it'll also, underneath that definition, it'll tell you that gives you a quote by a constitutional professor named Jethro Lieberman. And Jethro Lieberman was well respected, okay? So he said that the constitution makers had, did not abolish slavery. He said that they reached a compromise of a sort. The word slave and slavery would never be mentioned, but the Constitution would safeguard the peculiar institution. In other words, the peculiar institution we know is slavery. So the Constitution is safeguarding it. How does it do that? Well, it says you was emancipated, but it never said you was free, or it could have been the Freedom Proclamation, but instead it was the Emancipation Proclamation. And if you look at the definition of emancipation, it says to transfer person or property from one to another. The legal responsibility for those, for us, got taken from the private plantation owners and transferred to the federal government. Hence, you became property of the federal government instead of the private plantation owners, just like in a situation where you've heard of a child getting emancipated from its parents. That means that the legal responsibility got taken from its parents through some court proceedings and given to either the child or somebody else or the state. So you got emancipated, transferred from one to another. That's what happened there. So you never got freedom. You're still not free. And that's why in 1965, as Professor Williams said, that they had to come up with a civil rights bill and voting rights bill for people who should have already had it if we were free already, if that would help any. So anyway, I'm calling from Underground Bookstore, and I'm glad to be here this evening and listen to y'all. So and add my little penny to the conversation. Did we get that, Sister Iris?
No, she's gone. Was that
oh, okay.
That was very good, Joel. And let me add this to this argument about us being free in the United States of America. In 1857, the head of the Supreme Court a Roman Catholic jurist by the name of Roger Brooks Taney said these words. Here in the echo, he said these words that Negroes were not citizens of the United States of America, so therefore could not bring suit to federal court in the state of Missouri. Okay? So, and then he said that Negroes had no rights that a white man had to respect. Okay? So, that's what I want to bring out. And he said other things too, but we won't go into that. So I just want to bring out those two facts. I'm still hearing that voice.
Okay, Dr. Williams, do you have like a headset on? Or do you have something on with the broadcasters? Any background? Are you on a speakerphone or something like that?
I'm just on a land-based phone. I don't have no headset phone. It's just a phone.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what the echo is. What would
that
that be?
That might be coming from my phone because my buddies down at headquarters been listening to. I suspect they've been listening to the conversation, so they joining us this evening, and I invite them to. They want to have something to say. They can chime in and make some comment.
Let me suggest this. While we are talking and you're not talking, put your phone on mute. See what's better. Yeah, put it on mute. And then when you get ready to talk, take it off mute and you go ahead and talk. We try that.
Okay. He did that, and okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, 615. I'm sorry. 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give us an indication that you got something to say. I'll open up the phone lines and let you in. Just press 1 on the phone. Dr. Williams, you have anything else to add before I take another break?
No, Dr. Tarhaka, Mount Elbe, you go ahead and take your break, and when you come back, we can continue.
Okay, we're going to take another quick little break, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes, so y'all hold on.
Before I start this video, I just want to say I hope everybody is doing great. I've been very busy the past couple of months with other online projects, but I'm back now, and it's time to start banging out some videos. One of my most requested videos is about an alleged discovery of Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon. And I have covered this before, but that was many years ago, so I figured it was time to make a new video about this amazing story. In 1909, the Phoenix Gazette published 2 stories about a mind-blowing discovery. These articles stated that an explorer, G.E. Kincaid, was traveling down the Colorado River in Arizona when he made an amazing discovery. This explorer claimed that he found an ancient hidden city, and this city was in a huge cave, but it appeared that this cave was not made by nature, but it was made by man, or so he believed. Now this location, in the southwest, there are a few ancient cities from different Native American tribes, but this one was different. It seemed to be Egyptian, as there were hieroglyphs on the walls, Egyptian-like statues, such as a large figure sitting cross-legged, holding a lotus flower, and there were also mummies. This explorer estimated that, at one time, 50,000 people must have lived here, and whoever they were appeared to be Egyptian. Now this article goes on to say that the Smithsonian was involved, but they later denied this, so most assume that this story must be a hoax. But here's where things get interesting. This man did work for the Smithsonian, and during the time these articles were written, he was in this area working. And other explorers also stated that they saw strange hieroglyphs in this region of the Grand Canyon. But today, nobody can go here. It is off limits to the general public. It is government land. And this happened not too long after this alleged discovery. So this is interesting. Also, in this region, some landmarks have Egyptian names, such as the Tower of Ra, the Horus Temple, and the Osiris Temple. There's also a cave known as Kincaid's Cave. This cave is estimated to be a 3,000-year-old man-made cave, and this cave is at the bottom of what is now known as the Isis Temple. And according to this article, not only is this area off limits to the general public, but you also can't fly over it. Now, if this is true, then it's quite obvious to me that there is something here that they, the government, does not want us to know about. Now, since this is a famous conspiracy theory, sometimes people try to get into this area, but before they can reach this cave, they claim that they got caught by guards. And some also believe that these hills or mountains that kind of look like pyramids are also man-made. Here we have a picture of the Tower of Isis, where at the bottom left it does kind of look like a man-made wall. There was also another explorer, John Wesley Powell, who explored this area in the late 1800s, and he too also worked for the Smithsonian. Powell wrote, "In this canyon, great numbers of man-made caves are hollowed out. When I first walked down, I saw a cliff and climbed down. Then I could see a trail that had some steps. This path had not been traveled in a very long time. As me and my team explored this cave, we saw hieroglyphs, shrines, and other artifacts. I was so shocked about what we had discovered, I sent one of my team members back to notify the Smithsonian about our amazing discovery. The next day, we discovered more ancient Egyptian cities inside other caves." Now, what I find interesting about this alleged discovery is that this area in Arizona is very similar to where the pyramids are in Egypt. But I do find it hard to believe that the ancient Egyptians migrated to North America and just decided to stop in Arizona. Now, whatever the case may be, I do find it odd that soon after these two archaeologists claimed that they had found ancient Egyptian cities, this area was no longer accessible to the general public. And also, these rock formations that some believe are man-made pyramids are in the same alignment as the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Interesting indeed. Now, if the Smithsonian is covering this up, they're covering up more than just an amazing, awe-defying story of migration. They're covering up something about our past that they do not want us to know. Could it have something to do with religion, the hollow earth, the Nephilim, aliens, who knows? All I know is that if these stories are true, whatever it is would probably change everything. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.
Okay, everybody, we're back. Dr. Williams,
Yes.
I would like to chime in on what you were talking about the persons and stuff. And what I do is I get up Black's Law Dictionary, and I look up the definition of the everyday terminology and stuff that they are using. Persons and people and humans and all this stuff. I don't have the book in front of me now. However, but you'd be surprised at the definitions. But first of all, my position is this. There never was, when it comes to citizenship, nationhood, or nationality, there never was a such thing as a Negro. That was a brand or label that was put on a people that had a pedigree, that had a nationhood, that had a status, and was absolutely indigenous to this land. All of these labels and stuff moves the people away from the land. If we have Mexican people, and there's a land called Mexico, or we have Japanese and Chinese people, and there's a place called China and a land called Japan. In England, we got English people. In Britain, we got British people, all connected to the land. But when it comes to us, Negro, colored, black, Afro-American, African-American, all of these are brands and labels that disconnects you from this land. That is amazing.
That's
you
correct.
Can elaborate on that?
Yes, well, here, you're talking about a people, and a people I'm talking about is us Africans living and born in the United States of America. We are living under the name of Black, Negro. Black and Negro is synonymous. And we're also living under the name of African American. Those names are names that has no land to identify with and no language to identify with. Those names at this day and age takes us back to one who has been enslaved in the United States of America. In other words, it gives us a slave beginning. Now let's go back into history to find out where this name Black and Negro came from. Black and Negro was given to our African ancient Egyptian ancestors by the uncivilized Spanish-speaking people who lived in Spain. They asked, A-S-K, in 1091, they asked the ancient Egyptians who lived along the North African countries of Egypt, which borders the Mediterranean, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania. Those countries borders the Mediterranean. Mauritania, half of Mauritania borders the Pacific. Yes, I know all that. But now, where did these ancient Egyptians get this name Negro and Black from? In the country called Morocco, you have what is known as the Strait of Gibraltar there, which is a land extension that reaches out further into the Mediterranean, as do the other 5 countries that I mentioned. And at the end of the Strait of Gibraltar, in Morocco, that's where the ancient Egyptians who were asked to come into Spain by the Spanish uncivilized people of Spain, to bring civilization to Spain, our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, used Morocco and that strait to do just that. At the end of the Strait of Gibraltar, you have to take a boat 8.9 miles and travel until you reach the shoreline of Spain. Once in Spain, the Spanish people called our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, Black Amor. Black in Spanish means Negro, one and the same, synonymous. So they call us Black Amor. That's where we got the name Black from. It's a nickname given to the ancient Egyptians who were asked to come into Spain to bring civilization to uncivilized Spanish-speaking people in 1091. And that name was used, Negro and Black, until the Spanish Inquisition came about in 1478. Before the Spanish and the Roman Inquisition came about, those same Africans who brought civilization to Spain were asked to come into Italy because the seat of Christianity had been moved out of Constantinople. The word Constantinople today is known as Istanbul, Turkey, and that's where the world's first Christian church was built in 532, finished December 27, 537, commissioned by Justinian and his wife Theodora. So that seat was moved out of Northeast Africa because of the imminent threat coming from the Ottoman Turks. Okay, and it was John Day went to a curia. The word C-U-R-I-A, curia, means college, in Florence, Italy, and a curia in Ferrara, Italy. And he relinquished that seat of Christianity that was housed in Northeast Africa, in the double-walled city of Constantinople. And he released it to 6 humanists from Ferrara college of Ferrara, and 6 humanists from the Curia in Florence, Italy. So you have 12 men who were humanists. Now, a humanist today would be considered as an intellectual. Okay? And those 12 men received that seat. And they went to the Roman authorities in Rome and asked them to give them an allotment of land where they can build the second seat of Christianity, or the second church that is known as the seat of Christianity today. And they gave them an allotment of land on the outskirts or in the suburbs of Rome near the catacombs, which it stands today. And those 12 humanists asked the ancient Egyptians, who knew how to build now, because Europeans in 1445, they were still in the Renaissance era of Europe. They were not able to read or write, most of them, on their hand few, nor did they know anything about mechanical engineering. So they called on the ancient, the Moors, coming out of Spain to build that church, or the second seat of Christianity. And those Moors built the church, and it's called the St. Peter's Church, that they call St. Peter's Basilica. That church, St. Peter's Basilica, is designed after the first seat of Christianity, the first church in Constantinople, but with a smaller dome. Okay? And they laid out the Vatican, and they replicated the double-walled city of Constantinople in northeast Africa. And today, northeast Africa is called the Middle East, which is a political name. So they laid out what we know today as the Vatican today, and they built the Sistine Chapel in 1473. Now, in 1478, like I mentioned, the Spanish government Ferdinand and Isabella, and the Roman Catholic Church called for the expulsion of the Moors out of Spain and out of the Vatican, out of Rome. So they called it the Spanish and Roman Inquisition. The purpose of that Inquisition was to eliminate any traces that could be revealed to the world of humanity that these African people were over there in Spain bringing civilization to Spain, and they wanted to eradicate and the expulsion of these African people in the Vatican who built the Vatican over in Italy, over the suburbs of Italy. So they want to eradicate that from the world, knowing that these African people did these things. You see? So, long story short, when they began to expel these different Moors out of Spain, those Moors came back into North Africa, where they came from. Some of them went into Europe. And then you had another group that came over here in the Americas with Christopher Columbus on his ship over here. And then from 1492 to 1619 is 127 years that no one talks about. During that 127 years, those Moors, or those ancient Egyptian descendants called the Moors, brought civilization to this hemisphere of the Americas. And once they got the Europeans over in this hemisphere, got what they wanted out of the Moors or the descendants of the ancient Egyptians, they began to call for other learned Africans out of Africa to be brought into this hemisphere to be made slaves. Now, they brought learned men and learned women. They didn't bring no bush people and all that kind of stuff like that. They didn't bring no people who were ignorant, okay, and dumb, who couldn't read or write. They said that if they called a slave writing, they would cut his hands off. You know why? Because he already knew how to write and read. They won't tell you that. But anyway, once they got what they wanted from them, they put the enslaved Africans and the Moors under one umbrella. And they said, now both of you all are Negroes. And that's how they eradicated the Moors again out of history, whereby the masses of people living throughout the world will never know what happened with that 127 years, or the civilization that was brought into this hemisphere by the Moors coming over here with Christopher Columbus in 1497. So that would be my answer, Brother Tarhaka.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams. Brother Yoel, you have something you want to add? You can come on in, unmute your phone. Ladies and gentlemen, the number to dial into the broadcast is 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication you got something to say. Come on, Brother Yoel.
Well, I just wanted to add or kind of tweak our minds a little bit, and I'll ask the question whether what was going on in other parts of the world, whether or not that you played a tape during the break, and the guy was talking about Arizona, and he was saying something about some Egyptian artifacts being in Arizona, and we don't have access to that, and they're hiding something. Now, I do believe that is the case, and I remember, and I think you played another tape a little earlier about, and the guys were two guys that were having the conversation was talking about native so-called Indians, but they were African. And so I think that a lot of confusion here has been had over the years about who was really here already, but all the evidence seems to be keep pointing to Africans who were here in this time in this country. And when you look at the map and you look at South America and Africa, and you go back to when maybe the land was connected, it appears that that South America would have some similar climate and all of that as Africa does, because it was once upon a time connected to it, So the point is that there may have been some other people here who were African in this country already, and they just been lying about the whole thing, as if Africans just stayed in their place for thousands of years, sitting in what is known today as Africa, and they didn't go anywhere, and they didn't do anything. When we know they had boats or ships, whatever you want to call them, but the world would have us think you had all that, but you didn't do nothing with it, So that's all I wanted to add to that. That's all.
Okay, well, I here for the past maybe about 3 or 4 months now, we've been doing a detailed investigation. We started off with travel, where these guys are actually physically traveling all over South America, including parts of the Philippines, Haiti, Mexico, Tijuana, you name it, all over Brazil, South America, all over there. And what they are doing is they are going down into the sections of towns where our people are, which are never broadcasted and never seen, as if they don't exist. And they are exposing the fact that our people are there, and these people are saying we have always been here. And of course, we know the oldest remains found in the Americas is of a black woman. We know that. And also, now we have people down in South America who are releasing information on the fact that we were there, who we are. This is coming out now. I can't think of his name right now, but this guy's done a wonderful job. And he's naming places and stuff that we have never heard of where our people exist. Over in the Philippines. It's as if the lighter skinned people are being promoted worldwide and the darker skinned people are being kept behind the curtain as if they never existed. In his book, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, the research that he did down in Miami and the Florida Keys and areas down there, and I have been and actually seen it with my own eyes. There's plant life there that only grows on the continent of Africa. That's right down there. And he put it in his book, and he said no other place on the face of this earth is these particular plants found, but yet they are found down there. So we know that the landmass was connected. We didn't need a ship to come over here. All we had to do was walk across the street. And what's going on in the Grand Canyon and the cover-up with the Smithsonian Institute, and they're just one agency that's involved in this cover-up. And it is against the law for you to go to certain places inside the Grand Canyon because they can't, there's so much artifacts and evidence that they can't get rid of all of it. They were once dumping it into the Atlantic Ocean by the boatloads in order to destroy the fact that you were here first. This is your land. You're not a Negro. You're not colored. You're not black. You're not a native. You are absolutely indigenous to this land. You've always been here. You were here first. Then they switched it around and told you that America is the new world, and we leaving Africa to come to America, or leaving Europe to come to the new world. No. This is the old world. Europe and Africa and them the new world over there. It started over here. But nevertheless, there's a whole different thing, and I can provide a ton of information to prove that what I'm saying is true beyond any shadow of a doubt. The evidence is compelling and overwhelming. But I'm not going to get down into all of that. But I'm going to take another little quick break, and when we come back, we'll be ready to proceed. So y'all hold on a minute.
The ancient Egyptians built one of the greatest empires in history, and despite facing many difficulties, managed to maintain their sovereignty over almost the entire Nile River Valley. But Africa has always been a gigantic continent, inhabited by many different peoples. Some wanted to conquer the fertile lands of Egypt. Kingdoms and tribes with origins in Libya, Syria, and Turkey were constantly fighting against Egypt. But there were a people whose tenacity and courage frightened even the powerful Egyptians. The Nubians were an African people who lived in the Nubia region in today's Sudan. The Nubian people have been living in that region for a long time. By 3100 BC, there would be Nubian villages along the River Nile. During much of their history, the Nubians did not develop any writing. Much of what we know about them is in the records left by the Egyptians. The Nubia was a region rich in gold veins, semi-precious stones, ebony wood, incense, and ivory. This wide range of resources encouraged the Egyptians to invade that region in search of extremely useful raw materials. The Nubians resisted the Egyptian invasions as much as possible, but they were militarily inferior and were progressively pushed south. Due to the various periods of instability in Egypt, the Nubians were able to organize more effective defenses. During periods of peace, Nubians and Egyptians traded and shared different forms of knowledge. During the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose I, the Nubians were part of the Egyptian Empire, but that dominion quickly collapsed, and the Nubians established a unified kingdom, with Napata as its capital. The Nubians thus founded the Kingdom of Kush, which would become a respected African power. The term Kushite Kingdom comes from the Egyptians, who called the Nubian Kush. The founder of this new kingdom was a tribal leader named Alara, who became king of all the Nubians. With the Kushite kingdom established, the next step was to ensure its defense and economy. For this, Alara's successors reigned successfully, strengthening the kingdom and expanding their domains. The Kushites began to trade with Egypt through the Nile. They also established contact with the Arab kingdoms such as Nabatea and Sheba. The riches of the Kushites were extremely popular. Their leaders, priests, and even farm animals, like horses, were always embellished with pieces of gold and rubies. Over time, and due to the periods of instability in Egypt, the Kushites started to conquer Egyptian cities, including the city of Thebes. At the height of their power, under the command of King Paye, Egypt was fully conquered by the Kushites. King Paye declared himself the champion at the command of the god Amon. He joined his army, warred for over a year against several Egyptians, defeating everyone in his path. The phase of the Kushite and Egyptian history took place during the Third Intermediate Period of ancient Egypt, which began around the year 1070 BC. It is a period also historically known as the Nubian dynasty. The coexistence between Egyptians and Nubians originated marriages between the nobility of the two kingdoms. Both cultures influenced each other in religious and social matters. After consolidating the dominion in Egypt, King Paye returned to the city of Napata, capital of the Kushite kingdom, leaving his brother and successor to rule Egypt and its cities. Egypt remained under Kushite rule until 656 BC, and only weakened due to the Assyrian invasions, which conquered almost all of Egypt, causing turbulent pharaohs' lands. The Assyrians were fearsome warriors, much superior militarily. They already used iron weapons and armor, besides siege weapons and a well-trained cavalry. The Kushite rulers had to retreat to Napata. Sometime later, they founded the city of Meroe further south. Meroe became the new capital of the Kushite kingdom. The Kushite rulers adopted the Egyptian custom of erecting pyramids, being buried in those built in the city. During this period, the Kushites began to develop their writing, the Meroitic script. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus claimed that the Kushite kings reigned until they received an order from the priests of the Golden Temple. When this happened, they committed suicide and passed the power to the next sovereign. This strange custom lasted until the reign of the leader Ergomenes, different from most of his compatriots. He was an educated man, having studied with Greek teachers and learned philosophy. When Ergomenes was ordered to commit suicide, he was furious. He sent his soldiers to the temple to kill the priests, putting an end to this custom. Women also had important roles in Kushite society, having an active voice in everyday matters. For several times, Kushite queens reigned without the interference of male companions. There are even reports of Kushite women who fought in battles and commanded troops. The king's mother was given the title of Candace, which means Queen Mother. She was the king and queen's advisor. On some occasions, she participated in political negotiations and could even take full command. One of these powerful women, and perhaps the bravest of her people, was Amani Shaketo, who reigned in Kush when Rome had already conquered Egypt after the defeat of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Rome demanded that the kingdom of Kush pay tribute to the Republic. Amani Shaketo did not accept this demand and considered it an offense, declaring war against Rome. Her soldiers advanced to pillage Egyptian cities under Roman rule. In 24 BC, the Kushites sacked the cities of Aswan, Philae, and Elephantine. They returned to Kush with prisoners, valuable objects, and Roman statues. Even the head of the statue of the Roman Emperor Augustus was taken by Amani Shaketo, in a gesture of contempt against the enemy. Upon learning this, Augustus sent Roman general Petronius and his soldiers to punish the Kushites. There are few details about the battle, but Petronius may have said that the Kushites had more than 30,000 warriors and were fighting with frightening fury. Amani Shaketo was described as a corpulent and rough woman. She led her troops and became blind in one eye and being wounded by a Roman. After more than 3 years of fighting, the Romans finally proposed a peace agreement. In the year 20 BC, Romans and Kushites signed a peace treaty. The Roman emperor recognized the kingdom of Kush as an independent power without being obliged to pay taxes to Rome. The kingdom of Kush lasted until AD 350, but due to a lack of resources and trade, the kingdom was very weakened and dispersed. The once rich and proud Kushite kingdom ended up dominated by the Aksum Empire, which expanded its borders from the region of Ethiopia. The Kushites were an incredible people with brave warriors, skilled craftsmen, and wise merchants. Their history shows us the strength and perseverance of the African people, capable of repelling even the powerful Roman Empire.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Keep in mind, once again now, you get a chance to talk to our special guest, Dr. Walter Williams. The number to dial into the broadcast is 515-605-9757. Press 1 on your phone. That'll give me an indication you got something to say. Dr. Williams,
Yes.
Brother Yoel, are y'all still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we
still
give
here.
a little history information there. And I know Dr. Williams be listening very closely. Where you got wrong at, Dr. Williams? You find anything?
Well, yeah, every word that came out of his mouth was wrong. Every word that came out of the man's mouth was wrong.
All right, well, help us out. Straighten us out, man.
Mute your phone, Joel. Now, let's go back to see what this man is talking about.
Okay.
That's what I got a chapter to dispel everything that he was talking about in my new book coming out. It's called, that chapter is called Repudiation of the Chronologies of Ancient Egypt. And that I lay it out why I'm, let's go back and see why I'm saying all of this. In the chronologies that I am presenting in my new book, telling the reader that I'm repudiating the chronologies of ancient Egypt. The first chronology that I present in there is from a book that was printed in 1867, revised in 1870. Okay? And it's got the first pharaoh in that, first king, rather, in that chronology, king called Menes. Now, Menes, as you know, is the son of Ham. That's who Menes is, who's supposed to have an alias name of Egypt, but still an individual character of the Bible that never existed.
Okay.
Second thing, he mentioned the Kushite. The Kushite is Cush was one of the sons of Ham also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Cush is in the Bible is supposed to be the father of Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
Of Babylon, who started a kingdom in Babylon, and he was supposed to have built the Tower of Babel. He mentioned something about the Hittites. The Hittites is based off of Heath, the Hittites. That Heath was one of the sons of Shem, one of the sons of Noah. All these are biblical characters. So, and then he mentioned the Syrians. The Syrians come from Ashur, another son of Shem in the Bible. You see? And so all these are biblical characters. You throw all those names that he mentioned, throw it in the garbage because it's not history, not human history. Okay? It's what white people are saying. And I know why they're saying it. Okay? Now, you go back and understand this, that the ancient Egyptians never had armies or jails. They didn't invade nobody. You cannot be a civilized people and go around and kill people and jail people and rape women and all that kind of stuff, and you call yourself civilized? No. Our ancestors, ancient Egyptians, didn't do that. They practiced what is known as the law of Mayat, truth, justice, peace, love, and wisdom. So don't let nobody tell you anything different about our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, because every word that came out of that man's mouth is a damn lie. So that's what I have to say about that, Brother Tom.
Brother Uriel? Yes, sir.
Let us have it, man.
I'm here. Well, over the years I've learned a few things, and what we're talking about and doing right now is we're having an investigation or critiquing an investigation and adding to the investigation because and kind of connecting the dots. But this all reminds me of things that I've heard 30 years ago. And one of them was the old prophecy that lines up with Aquarius that says all that was in the dark shall come to light and all that has been hidden shall be revealed kind of stuff. And it seems that of course that lines up with Aquarius because Aquarius is you know that you study that it's the information age. So here all of this information coming out right now, and in these times going into Aquarius, which is also called the age of enlightenment. So this information is what they have hidden or thought they've hidden, and that would not be revealed is starting to be revealed. And then I read something else back then that said that they themselves would be the destroyer of themselves with their own records that they're keeping. And that's what those people that sounds like on your those little clips that you're playing there sound like they are speaking to that issue. They know something is wrong, but they can't tell you what's wrong right now. But they know something has been hidden, and they're trying to uncover what their cousins have hidden, and all of that. So they got access to where we don't have access sometimes. So they are helping to break down and get behind the lies or that they've been brainwashed us with and their own people with. So that's kind of how it seems like it's going right now. So it's just something that I think is prophesied to happen.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, there's an unbelievable amount of information that's coming out now. And the question was for a long time, what do we have as evidence outside of biblical literature? And I mentioned earlier about the guys down in South America and a few other guys that are bringing this information to light. We found out that they have covered up the truth about the latitude and longitude. Maps are coming out now that's never been seen before, that's more accurate than anything that we've ever seen previous today. And so there's a ton of information that is coming to light now involving the Egyptians. You got a town right there, area right there in the state of Illinois called Little Egypt. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Then we got down in Alabama, we got Africa Town, and then we got the Gullah Geechees up there in the Carolinas. And all of this information is not being broadcast to us, but upon an investigation, we're finding out that there's a whole lot of stuff that's coming out today. So we getting a whole lot.
Well, to kind of add to what you just said about Illinois, of course, Professor Williams was talking about that the other day. The lower half of Illinois is what's called Little Egypt, and we have a Thebes, Illinois. We have a Thebes, Illinois, and we have also Cairo, Illinois. So yeah, somebody would have to have had knowledge of Cairo, Egypt, and Thebes in Egypt in order to name those cities after those names, or vice versa. You know. So yes, and then there's a book by this guy named Frank Joseph that wrote a book called The Lost Treasures of King Juba, and he's an archaeologist, and he's been digging here in Illinois, and he's uncovered artifacts that were also African, but they made him stop digging over here in Illinois because of what he was finding, of course. So yes, it seems that it's all coming apart right now. But it was meant to come apart. Their time is up. The time that they've been hiding these things, and it's starting to come out now and be revealed.
Okay. Well,
but it still always also goes back to us, though. That's the main thing that I like to say. It still points to the same people, the Egyptians, having presence here as well as over there, because your guy on one of those clips you played, he mentioned Arizona, but Illinois got stuff. So they didn't just stop with the places that we've been told over the years. They were all over the place. And it's kind of silly for us to even believe that they just sat on the continent of Africa and they didn't go anywhere else. They didn't live anywhere else. They didn't do anything any place else in the world but right down on the African continent.
Yeah, that'd be naive on our part. We got somebody with the caller with his hand raised at area code 314. I'm gonna open up the line. Area code 314. You on the air? Tell us who you are, where you're calling from, what's your question or comment for our guest.
It's your father, man. How you doing?
Bianca, what's going on? I know your voice. Come on in, man. What's your 2 cents worth tonight?
You guys still on these kicks. Walter, Egyptians did have armies. One of the greatest. Yeah, Rameshu. Rameshu fought the Hittites all the way over to the Berjanis River. And he took 3 divisions. 3 divisions. Named Ptah, Heru, and Asar. So yes, they had armies. Nations didn't have army. They got their ass kicked. Still do today.
Well, where did you get that information from?
I spent at least 8, now I have to check my passport, maybe 9 years going in and out of tombs, temples, pyramids in Egypt. You have to go over there and see yourself. And the Kush, and you're talking about in the South, is not the same as biblical Kush, which came out of the Council of Gambia. There's one that's spelled with a K for reference, and the other is spelled with a C. And their god was Amun, who forbid mixing. It wasn't mixing with whites, it was mixing with other people. Cushites did not want to mix with Egyptians. That's why some Americans today couldn't be Egyptians, because they mixed. They got the blood. But other than that, how you doing, Walter?
Well, I lost my wife, Brother Bianchi.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Y'all was a team.
Yeah, right.
You as a team. I hope you're taking care of yourself.
Oh, yes, I'm taking care of myself. I'm being well attended to by my daughter and my caretaker and my granddaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, you hang in there. I always have been very fond of you, even during the time I kept Dr. Ben from beating you with his cane at the Red Lobster that night.
You never let him live that one down, did you?
All right. Oh, Dr. Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, he was something else, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, you can say that again. Dr. Ben, you're crazy, man. You're crazy.
Yeah. Khalid's still around. He's down there in Dallas, and he's working for the airline. So everybody still, those that ain't gone by the wayside, we still got a few of us left.
Okay, well, that's great.
But anyway, I just want to holler. I don't want to get into no discussions or anything, but always happy to hear your voice.
Thank you, Brother Pianki, and thank you for the control.
Talk to you later.
All right, now.
All right, may I hotel? Okay.
Well, you know, with regards to those that army he talked about, the question becomes what time period are you talking about? Because I guess if somebody's attacking you, you got to put together an army to fight back if you're gonna fight.
What was that, Joel?
But, I remember Dr. Clark said that there was Egypt enjoyed paradise for thousands of years before these other people showed up, though. So the question becomes: at what point did if they had a military, what point did they were they established? You know?
Okay. All right. Mute your phone. Again, I'm going to repeat again. The ancient Egyptians did not have an army or jails. They didn't need no army or jails. Jails is for people who have a corrupt government. The ancient Egyptians did not have a corrupt government. They needed no army to protect themselves from who? Okay? So now, getting back to you talk about all these biblical characters: Cush, son of Ham; the Canaanites, Canaan, the son of Ham; Mizraim, the son of Ham; Punt, the son of Ham; Cush, the father of Nimrod, and so forth and so on. All that's biblical stuff. And the ancient Egyptians, and I'm proving it in my book, did not write a history of themselves. They didn't write a history of themselves. I'm giving examples as the reasons why I'm saying that in my new book. The fourth example that I'm giving is by a book written by George Rawlinson, 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 who wrote a book called The History of Ancient Egypt in 1875. And I've been saying this, what I'm about to say to you, what he said. He said in this book written in 1875 that the ancient Egyptians did not write a history of themselves. Okay? And Walter Williams says the reason why they didn't write a history of themselves is because they left us, the descendants, their legacy, our legacy, in stone monuments such as the pyramid, art, et cetera, et cetera. So they didn't have no armies or jails. Now, where's all this coming from? It's coming from the Bible. Now let's go back and find out about the Bible. Okay? The first printed and created Bible was printed in 1475. Okay? So now, if all this stuff is in the Bible, coming from the Bible, And the Bible, the first printed and created Bible was 1475, and you're talking about ancient times. The two don't go together. So that's what I have to say about that. So you can take it from there and use your own common sense. Okay? Brother Tarhaka?
Okay, all right. Well, what I'm going to do now is I got one little short plug. I'm going to run that here, and then we'll come back and we'll see what this guy here got to say about this stuff. So y'all hold on a minute.
Ancient Egypt has long been described as one of the greatest civilizations of all time. The Sphinx, pyramids of Giza, and countless more treasures still to be unearthed. The River Nile has a history as long as its body, but we'll get into that later. Here in the heart of ancient Egypt, what we know about the civilization is largely from what has been left behind. Artifacts reveal the Egyptians had a diverse belief system, its own language, and a complex hierarchical and political structure. But there are some questions with divided answers, namely that of the ethnicity of the ancient Egyptians. Africans, sure, but were they black? Sheikh Anta Diop was a Senegalese historian and anthropologist. He was a firm believer that the ancient Egyptians were in fact black. According to his research, the skulls of ancient Egyptians had physical features resembling the peoples of the Upper Nile region, East Africans, and Nubians, all visibly black populations. But his theories aren't shared by all experts on the matter. We spoke to Dr. Zahi Hawass, an award-winning, world-renowned archaeologist. His life's work has been dedicated to the discovery and research of ancient Egyptian antiquities. Not surprisingly, his office is full of books on the topic, some of which depict dark-skinned ancient Egyptians. But he says there's an explanation.
No, they were dark-skinned,
but they were not black.
But they are not Negro. Because look at the lips of the Negroes like that and the nose like this. It's not really in the Egyptian origin at all. Different, completely different. And this is why you cannot connect the Egyptian civilization with the African at all. It's different. Or from Syria, Palestine, Mesopotamia, it's different, completely. Sheikh Anta Diop is from Senegal. And he announced that the origin of the Egyptian were Negro, based on the statues of Ramses II and the statues of Tutankhamun was black. And actually UNESCO did make a conference to discuss that. And they said there is no evidence, we have to postpone this.
Another group, Diop's research, claims to justify a black identity in ancient Egypt, but the Kushites of Kush Kingdom. Originating in what is today Sudan, the kingdom began in 1070 BC and lasted some 1,400 years. It was after King Kushta invaded Egypt in the 8th century BC, Kushite kings ruled the 25th dynasty of Egypt as pharaohs for a century. But what race were the Egyptians the Kushites met when they got there?
It's true that the black from Kush ruled Egypt in Dynasty 25.
Right.
And this is what the black Americans are proud of.
Yes.
But they mix the 25th dynasty with the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom. They don't know the difference. Then they think that Egypt is a black civilization. It's not true. The black from Kush in the south ruled Egypt. It's a fact.
Yes.
But it's not the Egyptian civilization, it's not a Negro civilization. Another theory that I believe in it, that the Egyptians were Egyptians.
With arguments for and against ancient Egyptian blackness, we decided to take our own journey to the past. It began at the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities, otherwise known as the Museum of Cairo. It's home to many gracious artifacts telling many stories of ancient Egypt's history, and we're hoping to find some answers. Inside the museum, we take a closer look at the place housing more than 100,000 pieces of history. Here we stand in front of a statue of Akhenaten. The pharaoh ruled during the 18th dynasty of Egypt and was husband to Queen Nefertiti and father of the famous boy king Tutankhamun. In front of the statue, our tour guide lends her opinion on the debate of race.
We are African, we are black.
Further to her point, she shows us the bust of Hatshepsut, the woman king who also ruled during the 18th dynasty. She's one of only 2 women believed to have been pharaohs in ancient Egypt. Well, just behind me we have the statue of Queen Hatshepsut, and automatically you can see the strength of her features, her nose, her mouth, but obviously the dark color of her beautiful skin. Queen Hatshepsut was the daughter of Tutmosis I, the wife of Tutmosis II, and the stepmother of Tutmosis III. Just outside Cairo, we reach the pyramids of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the world and part of one of the 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites here in Egypt. The pyramids were tombs filled with jewelry, perfumes and other valuables for the pharaohs who were expected to use them when they became gods in the afterlife. Giza represents a graveyard for this life and a resting place, a home for the afterlife. Close by is the Sphinx. The statue depicts a mythical creature with a human head and the body of a lion, which stretches 240 feet long and reaches 66 feet high. The marble reignites our questions about race. The noses on the statues of many ancient Egyptian pharaohs, as well as the Sphinx, have been destroyed. Claims lay blame for that destruction at the feet of European colonists who felt the noses represented black faces. But other experts say the defaced statues were a result of iconoclastic attacks intended to deactivate the life believed to be within them, motivated by politics and spirituality, not racism. Geography also plays a key role in the ethnically diverse populations of Egypt.
The second theory that many people thought that the origin of the Egyptians were from Africa and at the East Asia, area of Syria, Palestine and Mesopotamia. Then, based on what? They said that the Arabic language now, the grammar is the same like the hieroglyphic. And also the people from the eastern Syria, Palestine, their faces light, like the people in the Delta. The people in Upper Egypt, they are dark, African. And the African languages also has origin of the hieroglyphic grammar, the same.
The Nile Delta, where the river empties into the Mediterranean Sea, saw the coming of Europeans, like Alexander the Great of Greece in 332 BC, who laid claim to Egypt's 3rd largest city, naming it after himself, Alexandria. To the east are the populations in what is now Syria and Palestine and reach as far as Turkey, and then there's the undeniable presence of sub-Saharan Africa and the black populations therein. So Egypt, therefore, is a melting pot of history, culture, language, and race, united by one collective identity, African. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Cairo.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me open up these phone lines here now, because the first question that was asked is, why is there so much controversy over the ancient Egyptians being black? You know, why is there so much controversy on that? Let me see if I can get these phone lines open up. Let me see if I might have to refresh something around here. Okay, well, let me go over here and see what we got. Okay, we got a little technical problem here. Oh, man. Okay, so what's going on with that? Okay, we got a little technical difficulty going on here. It seems that I can't. Okay, well, what we doing here then? Okay, so we're gonna just hold on a moment. Let me refresh this right here, and then we can continue, so I can open up these phone lines and get Dr. Williams and Brother Yoel in here, so that we can address this business here. So y'all just bear with me for a moment. And okay. All right. Are we back? Okay, there we go with that. So let me see if I can do this. Okay, can I do this? Come on in here, y'all. All right, let me see. Let me get on back over here. Okay, so you're not going to let me do that either. Okay, can do this then. Y'all hold on a moment.
Oh, well, I guess we can talk about something here, Doc.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, what you want to talk about? According to that tape that he played, like I said before, every word that was spoken by the narrators was based off of lies. You got to remember something about our ancestors, ancient Egyptians. They brought civilization to the world. They were civilizers and not terrorizers. You cannot terrorize people and you call yourself a civilizer. The two don't go together. So what they're trying to do is try to take the Bible and prove the ancient Egyptians, according to the Bible, did these things. They're trying to make our ancient African, ancient Egyptians have the same type of spirituality. And like I said before, the Bible, which where all this misinformation is coming from, the first created Bible and first printed Bible was in 1475, CE. Okay? And they're talking about something in BC time. So the two don't go together.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harambe. Tonight we have a very special guest. He is one of America's most respected scholars of any ethnic persuasion, having authored more books than any contemporary African-American scholar. He is chair of Temple University's African-American Studies Department, having started the first doctoral program in African-American Studies ever. He is Dr. Molefe Kete Asante.
Okay.
But anyway, like I said before, the two don't go together. And he's got biblical statements, and they're putting it in, sitting it in ancient Egypt. And they said that the ancient Egyptians, and they're presenting to you in the world a chronology. The ancient Egyptians never wrote a chronology themselves. So remember that. See, so, neutral phone. So this is what has to be brought out. And I'm bringing it out in my new book, Dispelling Myths of Ancient Egypt. Okay? A warning to all African scholars, do not use the chronology of ancient Egypt. All African scholars are being warned. Teachers, intellectuals, and students, all are being warned, do not use that chronology. And I give you why you can't use it. Okay? Good example. So it's a matter of they're trying
to... I hear you, Dr. Williams.
They're trying to control Egypt, you see. And since they took the descendants of the ancient Egyptians and knocked them out of the box, miseducated them over in this country, taught them away from ancient Egypt. And they've been over there digging for over 250-something years, digging up our ancestors' graves and disrupting and plundering over there. It's a damn disgrace. And then they're going to turn around and tell us a bunch of lies. So I don't feel too good about that. So that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, can you hear me, Dr. Williams?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, well, Brother Yoel, come on in, man.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
What you thinking now? I know that little guy that was doing the talking. He's been for the longest trying to say Egyptians are not Africans. I mean, and he's supposed to be some authority. Every time I look around, he came to Jacksonville one time, and he stated supposed to be an expert on Egypt. And I'm trying to figure out, well, who are you and what are you talking about? Who even allowed you to even have anything to even say about it in the first place? But you, he's being regarded by the European establishment as some type of historian on Egypt, or expert on Egypt, and all of this stuff. That was him on this plug. What you take on him, man?
Are you referring to Malefi Asante?
No, not Malefi. I'm talking about this other guy on this.
The guy that was interviewing.
Yeah, because I just got knocked off the air here a minute. I didn't know if y'all could hear me or not.
No, we couldn't hear you. But
Okay.
that was you were talking about Hawass.
We heard him introducing Malefi Kente Asante, but we never heard what was said.
Okay, well that was another little plug. I'm gonna run a little bit of that, but I'm talking about the guy before on the plug when the woman was on there, and she was interviewing, and the people in the background said, "Well, the Egyptians are black." Now here he was.
You heard that one, yeah. I couldn't hear it clearly though.
Listen, Tarhaka, I'm telling you, it was Hawass of Egypt.
Okay.
That's his name. I forget his first name, but his last name was.
Where did he come from? Because every time I look around, he's upstairs talking about this and about Egypt, this and that and the other, and I'm like, well, what in the heck are you? Where did you come from with this crap?
Right. Well, I'm telling you, Western academia set all this up, and they set it up while we were asleep as a people, as a descendant of ancient Egyptians. I always remember what Theodore P. Ford said in his book, God Wills the Negro, in 1939. He said that the Egyptians vanished and the Negro appeared. The ancient Egyptians vanished and the Negro appeared. So today, as I speak and as we speak, I'm trying to bring back the ancient Egyptians. So we're going to vanish the Negro so the ancient Egyptians can appear. Okay? And always remember, ancient Egyptians are the descendants of the American Negro. The ancient Egyptians are the descendants of the American Negro. So never mind what these white people are saying. They full of, hey, we don't curse or anything like that, but they are trying to control ancient Egypt, and they get away with it because our descendants of ancient Egyptians have been put asleep over in this country. So that's what about that. It was Hawass that she was interviewing. I forget his first name.
Okay. Now, since I was off the air, I was messing around trying to get this stuff going over here. Did y'all hear Malefi Asante? Did he get a chance to say anything?
No.
Okay, because I was over there messing with the buttons and stuff because I'm steady. I don't know if y'all heard me or not, but I was steady asking you if you could hear me and stuff, but this thing froze over here. And I got another solution for this because this has been going on both computers, and I'm trying to figure out why. It was so often to start doing that, so I'm wondering what the heck is going on. But nevertheless, we're going to do a little few minutes, and I'll be back in because I'm trying to get all of this done. So y'all hold on a minute.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harambe. Tonight we have a very special guest. He is one of America's most respected scholars of any ethnic persuasion, having authored more books than any contemporary African-American scholar. He is chair of Temple University's African-American Studies Department, having started the first doctoral program in African-American studies ever. He is Dr. Molefi Kete Asante. Welcome to Harambe, Doctor.
I'm delighted to be here.
All
Thank
right,
you.
brother, let's cut right to the chase. Were the ancient Egyptians black?
Yes. I mean, every indication that we have, historical information, linguistic, art, in terms of art, in terms of science, the ancient Egyptians were African people. And anyone, as John Henry Clark, the eminent historian, likes to say, who was in Africa, who was not black, was either an invader or the son or the daughter of an invader. Africans were black. And in antiquity, of course, the ancient Egyptians were black people.
Mm-hmm. Well, what categories of evidence do you have to support your contention that the ancient Egyptians were
black?
Well,
it's a curious question that you ask about the categories of support. And the reason it's a curious question is because no one asks, if you talked about the Greeks, no one will say to you, what proof do you have that the ancient Greeks were white people? Nobody asked that kind of question. They asked that question about Egypt, but the categories are numerous categories. But fundamentally, the ancient name of Egypt, of course, is not Egypt. Egypt is the Greek name, Egyptus, but the Africans called the land Kemet, which means the land of the black people. And so Kemet itself, in terms of just the language, in terms of the Medu-Neter, which is the ancient Egyptian language, in terms of that language, we know that they were black people. But not only that, but if you go and you look at the paintings on the tomb walls, what you see are black people. If you look at the indications, for example, in documents such as in the tomb of Ramses III, where you have the world's first ethnology, that's where you have a group of people representing different races. The Ethiopian and the Egyptian are both black people, and they look just alike. So that's evidence. I mean, then there's the evidence of the Europeans themselves. I mean, Greek people, like Aristotle and Herodotus. Aristotle says that the Egyptians that he saw, he says that they were black. In fact, he said they were very black. He said the Ethiopians and the Egyptians are very black. And this book is Physiognomonica. You can look it up. I mean, people can look that up. I mean, Herodotus says, for example, the people of Colchis must be Egyptians because, like them, they have black skin and woolly hair. So the ancient Egyptians were black according to the Greeks and the people who were, observers who saw these people. So I don't think it's any question. I mean, the Egyptians never even, they never, I mean, this question would be crazy. It is not even, it should not even be discussed. Anybody who thinks that the people of Africa, the Nile Valley region of Africa, and the Nile Valley civilizations were either European or were Asians, do not know the documents and don't know the facts of the Nile Valley history.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are some detractors, Dr. Asante would say, what difference does it make? I mean, with all the problems that people of African descent have today, what difference does it make that the ancient Egyptians were black? How do you respond to that?
Well, it makes a lot of difference. And the difference it makes is that, number one, you've got to have your facts straight. And in order to look at the contemporary situation, you've got to have facts straight. And I think for school children, it's very important that people teach accurate information, not teach information that is distorted, that is false. I mean, I've gone to schools recently where young people believe that Egypt is not even in Africa. I mean, how does a kid in the 8th grade get to the point where she believes that Egypt is in Europe? The only way you can get to that point is because of the distortion of the information in people's minds and imagination. So when I say that it is important that we have this information, it's important for, number one, you teach accuracy. Number two, it's important because it relates directly to our perception of the African continent itself. I mean, to rob Africa of its classical civilizations is much like robbing Europe, for example, of Greece and Rome. I mean, so it is important in terms of perception, in terms of conception, in terms of how people view themselves, how we view each other. It is important that we have accurate information. The ancient Egyptians were black people, and the evidence, of course, by people like Sheikh Anta Diop who did even melanin tests on the skins of the mummies of antiquity. I mean, all of these evidences are enough to demonstrate that if we talk about antiquity, you're talking about a black people. I mean, you're not talking about a European people or an Asian people. You're talking about people who, in fact, the further back you go in antiquity, the blacker the people are. So if you come forward, then you have, of course, you know, the mixtures coming in, the Arab population coming in. But the Arab population doesn't come into Egypt in large numbers until 639 to 641 of this era, this era, not before, not in the BC era. In the BC era, there are no large influxes of people, with the exception of the invasions. Occasionally, one could point to the invasion, for example, in 625 of the Persians, and then the invasion in 333 of the Greeks. But these were not great influxes. The great influx was the Arab influx, which came from Arabia into Egypt, and that influx came in the 7th century A.D. and not in antiquity.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Egypt is designated as being in the Middle East as opposed to being a part of Africa, which we both know that it is. At what point in history, Dr. Asante, was Egypt taken out of Africa and placed in the Middle East, and why?
Well, the Middle East, and I've written about this too, as you point out. I mean, I've written about this a lot because part of what has happened is that people take the notion that Middle East, they believe that Middle East refers to a continent. It doesn't refer to a continent at all. I mean, we know that. It is a political entity and a political concept. And it's a political concept that came into being basically after the last great European war in the latter part of the 1940s, the early part of the 50s. But so it's a political designation, but it's not a continental designation. There's no continent, Middle East. Egypt, of course, has always been in Africa. You can't take it out of Africa. You can drive overland from Ghana to Egypt. You can go from Kenya overland to Egypt. There's only one country separating them. You can go from Ethiopia to Egypt. You can go from Sudan to Egypt. They're on the same continent. But what happened was that in the top of the 18th century, 19th century, after 1800, 1803, around that time, there was a deliberate attempt on the part of many European scholars to try to deal with what they had found in Egypt. I mean, the monumentality of the temples, the great extent of the tombs and so forth, which was more monumental than anything, and they had to try to take Egypt out of Africa.
Mm-hmm. We want to pick up a little bit more on that, but first we're going to take a break right here and give our viewers a chance to test their knowledge of history with our monthly feature, Black Facts. We're talking with Dr. Molefe Asante of Temple University. Doctor, you want to pick up on what you were talking about, taking Egypt out of Africa?
Yeah, the point I was making, of course, was that in 1799, when the French invaded Egypt with the Grand Army of France, they discovered in the Nile Valley a civilization that was more majestic and more monumental than Greece and Rome combined. And it was a problem, I mean, because they had been teaching in European universities courses on the classics, and they meant by that, of course, the European classics, Greek and Latin, Greece and Rome. But when you find a civilization that was anterior to Greece and Rome, and more majestic and monumental. In fact, there's more written material about this African civilization. Question is, what do you do with it? And I think that was the beginning of trying to take Egypt out of Africa. The idea was that it could not have been created by African people. I call it the legacy of disbelief. The idea that, wow, I mean, this is in Africa? How did these temples get in Africa? How did these columns get in Africa? How did the father of medicine get to be an African? I mean, how did the father of writing get to be an African? I mean, how did the originators of astronomy get to be African people? The originators of agriculture, of geometry, of surgery, of music, I mean, in terms of written music, mathematics.
And this contrasted with the great enslavement at the same time.
This is exactly right. And of course, while Africans were being enslaved during the same period of time in terms of the rediscovery, in a sense, by Europe of Africa, what had to happen was what Martin Bernal calls in his books Black Athena, you had to have an Aryan interpretation of history. The Aryan model of history was an interpretation that simply said it could not possibly be true that black people created a civilization like this. So that's when you get the idea that somehow Egypt is not a part of Africa.
Mm-hmm. What are the most noteworthy accomplishments of the Egyptian era?
Well, I think that there are numerous accomplishments, but and you have to remember it was the ancient Egypt, of course, is the longest continuous civilization that we know of. I mean, if you go back to 3100 before the Christian era, and you start there with the first dynasty. Now, of course, you can go even earlier than that if you start with the 16 kings before Menes, who was the first king of the first dynasty. But if you look at that whole tradition, there were 3 golden periods in ancient Egypt before the first golden period in Greece. That sort of gives you the length of this history. I mean, you had a first golden period, which comes around the 6th dynasty, and then you had another one around the 12th, and then you had and the 18th, and then you had a stronger dynasty around the 25th and 26th. So you had, which were great in terms of the revival of architecture, the development of literary forms, and I think then that the fundamental contribution might very well be a spiritual contribution. I mean, even though you have all of these technical and material contributions, when you look at the ancient Egyptians' approach to life, and of course, the approach to life is an approach to death. I mean, the same thing. The idea of the eternal life and the concept of eternal life as symbolized in mummification itself and in the construction of the tombs, some of them 60 or 70 feet under the earth, of individuals who would construct their tombs there so that they could live in eternal life. I think the concept of eternal life was the biggest contribution that the Egyptians made if you look at the spiritual side of it.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the Egyptian mystery system.
Well, the mystery system was no mystery, of course, to the Egyptians. I mean, it was a mystery to the Greeks, but it was not a mystery to those people. I mean, they truly understood that if you looked at any of the great myths of Egyptian life, for example, the myths at Heliopolis or the myth at Memphis, where you had the construction of reality based on the deity Atum and Ptah. I mean, what you discover is that in order for a person to be well educated, the Egyptians thought that it was necessary that a person go in as an initiate and learn various categories of knowledge. So the mystery system was in fact the first university system. I mean, this is why people have spoken of it as the Osiris-Ika, the place, of course, where Osar or Osiris gave forth at least the knowledge of Osar, and the various attributions of Osar were very important for people in terms of learning how to pass through life.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the remaining tenets or principles that date back to the great Egyptian era that are still in place in what we know as Western civilization?
I mean, almost everything. No, I'm really being facetious. But when you've been to Egypt, or when you study Egyptian history and culture, and when you look in the African Nile Valley, you come back to the West if you have never gone to Egypt, and you see everything. I mean, you look at the columns, for example, on banks and buildings, and you see the columns that people call Greek columns, and you know that these are Egyptian columns, and you know that they existed in Egypt 2,000 years before they existed in Greece, and that the Greeks got them.
Okay, we're back. We're down to the last 8 minutes. I'm going to open up the phone line so we can tell you how to get a hold of these books and stuff. Dr. Williams, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Brother Tarhaka. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. We're down to 7 minutes, and can you tell us how to get a hold to your books, and you want to weigh in on Brother Malefi and what he was saying?
Well, I need more time than that, but anyway,
okay.
We'll pick that up on our next show.
Okay.
Anyway, my books, my 2 books, I've written 2 books called, one is called The Historical Origin of Christianity. That's been out for 29 years. And then the second book is called The Historical Origin of Islam. It's been out for 19 years. The historical origin of Christianity is saying that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ never existed. So I break all that down to the reader in my book, The Historical Origin of Christianity. The historical origin of Islam is saying that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of Islamic tradition by the name of the Prophet Muhammad. So I break all that down. And also in my Islam book, I give you on page 69 the first meeting in Islam's history and all the minutes that goes with that. So these 2 books are very, very important. And also the Christianity book, I'll give you why the Metaphysical hieroglyphs have never been deciphered. So I urge people to get both of those books. Of my books, so you can have it in your library, so you can enhance your knowledge with it. Now, you can get both of my books by ordering my books from Brother Yoel, our brother on the show tonight, who has a bookstore in Chicago called the Underground Bookstore. And you can call him at area code 773-768-8869. 773-768-8869 and order both of my books. And you can also, whatever town that you live in, if you have an African bookstore, go there and ask for my books, and I'm sure they can have it on hand, or they can order it for you. Also, and then you can also get my books on Amazon. So that's what I have to say about that and those 2 books. And also I want to mention also about the Great Debate Tape. That Great Debate Tape is very, 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 very important, and I urge people to get that Great Debate Tape through Brother Tarhaka of Mali El Bay. And he'll tell you how to get it, because there's a lot of information on there that you're not going to see or hear from anybody. So that's what I have to say. And then if you want to get in contact with me, you can call me by telephone, or I tell you what you do. You call Brother Yoel at 773-768-8869. Brother Yoel, 773-768-8869, and tell Brother Yoel you want to get in contact with Walter Williams, that you want to communicate with him, and he'll pass me your phone number, and I'll call you back, okay? All right. That's what I have to say, Brother Tarhaka.
All right, Dr. Williams. Certainly appreciate you being on the broadcast tonight. I'm going to go down here to Brother Yoel. Brother Yoel, you with me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, you want to tell us where you are and how to get a hold of your book and the books and stuff you got?
Well,
just as Professor Williams said, you can find me at Underground Bookstore here in Chicago. You can call me at 773-768-8869. That's 773-768-8869. Or you can email me at undergroundbookstore1@gmail.com or undergroundbookstore1@yahoo.com. Either one of those emails you can contact me through. And also, if you're looking for any rare books or any hard-to-find books, we kind of specialize in trying to find those books with people who are looking for books that they're having a problem finding. So, and any other book, black, white, written by whoever, whatever color they are, you don't just have to relegate us to just black books. Whatever book you're looking for, we're looking for those. We can help you find those books too. So again, in Chicago, thank you very much for the show, Tarhaka, and thank everybody in the listening audience for listening. And Professor Williams, thank you for this evening's conversation. Absolutely.
All right, we appreciate you being on, Brother UL. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be putting this broadcast up on YouTube. I have to apologize. Also, I want you to keep in mind, in order to get you a great debate, go to denationalization.org, and you can fill out the contact us form. My number is on the website as well up top. You just give me a call and I'll explain to you how I can get that to you in a matter of minutes. This broadcast will be converted. We'll put it up on YouTube. Next Sunday night, we'll be back with some more of your secured party and creditor and your 1099s and your A, B, and C and all your other documents and stuff, and private and public and that kind of stuff. But anyway, we certainly appreciate you being here. I've been your host, Tarhaka Amana LB, and until next time, y'all have a good one.